you're in India with your mom, and you meet Guruji in India. What happened?
I saw this young man about 50 meters away from me, and he was looking at me, Indian-looking man, and he was smiling at me with this bright smile. And then when I looked again, he was still smiling at me, and it was kind of awkward, you know. So I didn't really know what to do. He came to me, and we started talking. I've never had that feeling before meeting him, and I've never had it with anyone afterwards. And that was a feeling that I know him forever, since ever. Like, not in this life, not last life, whatever, but like forever, like since the beginning of time somehow. It was a very weird feeling, and I've never had that before.
Do you know what it is? Yeah, bro, it's like this, bro. He makes like Harry Potter real. It's like the stuff you read in Harry Potter, it's real, and it's with him. And I was just like, okay, thanks, that's really clear now. Like, I got it.
Yeah, but it's with Guruji, it's beyond the magic. Yeah, there is, let's say, that element or the things you can't explain, etc., or the phenomenon. But it's the inner experience that is the real miracle or the real deal. Let's say.
Jai Gurudev, Paartha.
Jai Gurudev, Swami Revatikaanta.
Very nice to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
So we've known each other for 18 years.
A long time.
It is a long time. And because it's a long time, I want to explain to everybody, these are two people here, especially Paartha, who have gone through so many things, so many experiences, so much history in Bhakti Marga and Guruji and everything else, that for us, it's like we have to prompt each other to remember things because so much has happened that you actually start to forget everything, right? Exactly. So this is going to be a fun conversation to try to extract nuggets from your memory. The reason being because, Paartha, you are the oldest European devotee in the mission of Bhakti Marga. You're the first European to meet Guruji who is present in Bhakti Marga today.
If you say so.
It is the truth, right? And I think you've been there from the very start to where we are today. Today, you are still a director of the organization, still having very important seva role. And so a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. But before we do that, maybe if you don't mind, like tell me a little bit about yourself almost before you met Guruji, like just set up the background before we dive into the Guruji stuff so that who was Paartha before Guruji?
Oh, before Guruji, teenager.
How old were you when you met him?
17.
Right.
Yeah, so I was quite young. Still, I happened to be in India because my mom wanted to go to India, and but she didn't want to go alone. So I accompanied her, basically. I didn't, wasn't particularly interested, but something pulled me there as well. But I thought it's like a good opportunity to just get away from home for some time and to go to a faraway country. Yeah.
Adventure.
Yes, exactly. And then that's how my adventure with Guruji started.
Basically. So before that, regular studying, school?
Yeah. I went to school. I was a normal teenager doing normal teenager stuff. I don't need to go into the details. I did school. I did an apprenticeship in an insurance company. I was working there, half work, half study.
And where was this?
Sorry?
Where was this?
In Switzerland, yeah.
People didn't know. From Switzerland. Where in Switzerland? Zurich?
In Thun.
Thun?
Yeah.
Nice.
Bern, Thun, that's actually in both places. I was partly in Thun working and partly in Bern studying.
Quick question, I think, to set the landscape though. Did you believe in God before meeting Guruji?
Yeah, I would say so.
What would be your framework of God? Like, what was your idea? Custom or something more traditional? Or
I don't know. Both my parents were quite spiritual, or are quite spiritual, and so it was kind of, I guess I kind of inherited that. Yeah, it wasn't a very narrow picture of God, let's say, but it was quite of an open-minded and broad picture. Nothing in particular that I would say, like, this kind of image is God, but it was quite broad. But I did believe in God. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so then you're in India with your mom, and you meet Guruji in India. What happened? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, actually, I was also with a friend of mine on this. It was the second trip I went to India. I've been once before with my mom, and then the second time with. She was also there, but also a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we were just standing on a busy square with lots of people around. And I've told this story many times, so.
But not to this audience, not on the Thinking Bhakti podcast. Let's go.
Yeah, and I was just standing there on this busy square. And then I saw this young man about 50 meters away from me. And he was, or maybe 30 meters, yeah. And he was looking at me. He had shoulder-long hair, like this, Indian-looking man. And he was smiling at me with this bright smile. And I was kind of smiling back, and then I looked away again, doing my own thing. And then when I looked again, he was still smiling at me, and it was kind of awkward, you know. So I didn't really know what to do. Anyway, he came to me, and we started talking. Yeah, he asked me where I was from, and the conversation started happening. This was the first meeting, first.
And you were 17, and how old was Guruji?
19. Yeah.
It's sometimes, I think, for people like just that, like imagining a 19-year-old Guruji, for a lot of people who only met him now, you know, in his 30s, 40s, whatever, it's like a wild concept. I mean, I met him when he was 26, 27. Mm. And even that, like sometimes I go back to thinking how he looked, and it's like, how do I put this? When I met Guruji, I was 15, right? So like as a 15-year-old, a 26 or 27-year-old is an old person. Like, but he's very clearly an adult, like an old person, right? But when I think about it, actually, he was in his 20s. That's a really young person, right? I know people in 20s now, and I look at them and I think, you're really young, right? So it's just funny how we have these different perspectives, and to see Guruji in that age is just, it's a very, very different experience. So, okay, you met him, you guys started talking. How did that become anything more than just a conversation? What were the sequence of events in a way that you can remember?
It was more of an inner feeling that I had from the moment that we started talking.
That he was different?
Not directly that he was different, but that my relationship to him was different than anything to anybody I've ever met.
Right.
And actually, funny enough, I've never had that feeling before meeting him, and I've never had it with anyone afterwards. And I was a feeling that I know him forever, since ever. Like, not in this life, not last life, whatever, but like forever, like since the beginning of time somehow. It was a very weird feeling, and I've never had that before. And I can't explain it really, but it was just... it was kind of a knowledge or knowing, that just happened in that moment, of my life, and
I think what I like about these, actually, one of the things that what you just described, right, this feeling of knowing him, that it's not something that can be explained. Obviously, a lot of devotees have felt that in different ways, right? One of the things we did with our new Siddhanta is that we've tried to capture that, because it is factually what happens often with Guruji. Like, people don't come to Guruji thinking, let me scrutinize him as this, that, and the other. We just feel something that is like a recognition.
Yeah, it's a recognition. Yeah.
So we have this term pratyabhigna, which means basically that, inner recognition. And we're basically presenting that as one of the ways of acquiring knowledge, as you kind of said, like a way of perceiving a reality that is not material, that is not based on external factors. And it's just remarkable how many of us have the same experience, like of just, you meet him and immediately there's a sense of, this is unlike anything else.
Yeah, this is also kind of when people ask me what is unique about Guruji, or who is he, or, people don't really familiar with him or what he does, etc. It's it's the inner experience that you have upon getting in touch with him, and it's an inner. It's like what I've observed over the years and many years that I have seen people meeting him for the first time. It's like a recognition of the soul. It's not a recognition of the mind or even the heart. It's a recognition of the soul, of something that is beyond what we know. And often people experience a type of love they've never felt before in their lives, which is an unconditional love, which is a divine love, something that they didn't even know existed.
Right.
Yeah. It's something you might read in a book about, or something you might, know from some stories of the Bible or of other scriptures, etc., or saints. But it's an experience, and that's what makes him, in my opinion, unique. Yeah, that's the most distinct feature about him.
Mm-hmm.
That in many different ways he makes God tangible. Yeah, he makes God become alive, and not just a concept or an idea or something you've read or something somebody has talked about.
Yeah. I remember speaking to Ravi, Guruji's cousin, when I was much younger, and he said, I asked him, like, describe a little bit Guruji, and he was saying some stuff, and he was a little lost for words. He's just like, I'm not a public speaker type person.
Yeah, like me.
And he said, do you know what it is? Yeah, bro, it's like this, bro. He makes like Harry Potter real. It's like stuff you read in Harry Potter, it's real, and it's with him. And I was just like, okay, thanks. That's really clear now. Like, I got it.
Yeah. But it's a funny way of comparing. Yeah. Because it's like in Harry Potter, you experience these, or you see these magic things, let's say. Yeah. But with Guruji, it's beyond the magic. Yeah. There is, let's say, that element, or the things you can't explain, etc., or the phenomenon, how I call them, or miracle, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But it's the inner experience that is the real miracle, or the real deal, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, and I think that's also when I compare, like, in the from the past till now, it's really become much more about that over the years. Also in the way he conducts himself, so where he points towards.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think one of the things that's amazing about Guruji is that he's not great because of a lineage that he represents, or he's not great because of some kind of even some kind of skill that he exhibits, like because of his singing, which is great, or his speaking, which is great. But it's he is the experience. Like, meeting Guruji is the experience. And I think sometimes I had a conversation with him once about this. It was like, because you're just talking about going to India and you met him there. And I said to him, Guruji, didn't people before the internet have a little bit more luck? And he was like, in what sense? And I was like, if you heard about someone like you, right, you have to go and see for yourself. You have to have the experience. Now you hear about someone and you watch what we're doing. It's a podcast, it's YouTube, it's Instagram, it's whatever. And watching him that way, it's not that it's not impactful. Of course it is. But I don't know that it's even 10% of the real experience of being in his presence and having that situation happen somehow. Anyway, not to go deeper down into that road. So you had this recognition, you were with him in that point, and practically speaking, how did that then move into a relationship of sorts, of having a friendship and having a connection, and what did that evolve into, and how?
I would say very naturally, since that feeling was there from the beginning. It was not ever for me a question that, that it shouldn't be like it was. And it was like really such a close connection, and it was just there. And we went on, we sat down at the road, we talked for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and I didn't really want to stop, and I didn't see the reason to stop the conversation. Let's say I felt so at ease, I felt so good, or comfortable in this company, that I didn't feel like I needed to leave. So the next day as well, we met in the same thing. My friend was getting a bit annoyed, like,
why are these guys talking?
Like this, come on. And but it was just what it was. It was like, in a way, he was immediately part of my family, or I was immediately part of his family. Immediately. And this is also how I see it a little bit, with a lot of people when they come or they meet him. Like, it's kind of a sense of belonging, a sense of family also, in a way. And he's not for in a way, he is for everybody, but at the same time also not. You know, for some people, they are drawn to him. They feel this connection, and others, you know, they might be drawn to another guru or another saint and another person, which is totally fine. So, and this is also, like for me, that's why I like it also when things are also in and around Bhakti Marga, they're not too stern,
dogmatic.
too dogmatic. I like it when it's a bit, you know, because, you know, different people have different paths, and I like to respect that, and I like to honor that, and it's totally fine. Yeah, and we believe in what we believe in, and others believe in what they believe, and it's good.
Yeah. So after that meeting in India, what was the next step? Like, you went back to Europe?
I went back to Europe. He went back to his home, Mauritius. And then about 2 months later, he was in London. And then I went to see him there.
To visit Ravi?
He was with, and some other people.
Right,
Yeah.
So then you continued your relationship there. How did this eventually lead to Guruji moving to Europe? How did all this happen?
Well, after I left London, a couple of days later, he came to Switzerland to visit me and my family there. And actually already in that first visit, other people somehow started coming. I don't know, like, it's just, you know how he is. It's like he just attracts people, you
magnet,
know. Yeah, and he's just a magnet, and people started coming, and somehow it evolved in him coming again, and more people coming, and you know, just.
But was he acting like a guru?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that when he had his robe on, and he usually had this only when he was like receiving people. Yeah. When I came in to London for the first time, when I came into this house, actually when they picked me up at the airport, it was all like in jeans and normal, and we went around town, we visited the temple, we did this and that and the other. And then in the evening when I came to that house, the house was full packed with people chanting and singing bhajans, and he was in one room giving interviews, meaning he receiving people and giving advice, counsel, etc. And there he was in a bit of a different, role. That in a sense that, yes, he was like a guru, but then again, like, otherwise, no, not really. Yeah. In a sense, always, but also not. Yeah. Like, he could also be super casual. Yeah.
And people recognized this, and people came. There was the attraction just because of his saintly nature, like stories about him. What was it that was attracting the people?
I guess a combination.
Word of mouth sort of thing.
Like, you heard about him. Oh, yeah, let's go and see him.
There's
this guy from Mauritius
bringing Harry Potter to life. Let's come meet him. Okay, and then, but eventually he moved. He moved permanently, right, to Europe.
I don't know if you can ever say he moved anywhere permanently ever, because he's just like he's just like, he can't sit at some place for a long time. Like, I remember those days when we were at my place, and then it was morning. You get up, you would do something, you would have breakfast, let's say, and after 1 hour or 2 hours, you'd say, like, hey, let's do something. Let's go somewhere. It's like, why? It's like, yeah, but we can't sit at home. Like, I said, why can't you sit at home? I can perfectly comfortably sit at home the whole day and do nothing, or just be at home. Yeah. And it was not possible.
Same Guruji that I know.
Latest after lunch, we had to move.
Be out, do something.
Drive somewhere.
Let's set the record straight here. This is a great opportunity I just thought of. So Guruji and I often have fights about this. It's about his time in Europe, right, before Bhakti Marga started and all of this. And I always say to him, Guruji, you were this many years here, this many years there, because I've researched the matter. And he goes like, no, I lived for many years in Switzerland. And I'm like, how many years? And he's like, sometimes he's even said like 10. And I'm like, Guruji, the maths is not mathing, right? I think it's more likely like 4, even that's a stretch.
Time is relative, Revati.
Okay, so let's not expose the time relativity here. Guruji is floating around, therefore, Europe, basically going a little bit around. UK, Switzerland, France also, I believe, at some point. He's
Germany.
Germany
became prominent.
Yeah. How did that happen? How did Germany start to become prominent? People.
Yeah, because whenever there's programs in Switzerland, 70% of the people attending were Germans.
Right.
Yeah, because Switzerland is quite small. There's not a big population, and there's even a smaller population who is interested in something like this. So, usually it would be Germans.
And then they started to invite him to Germany.
Yeah. Basically, eventually happened. Yeah.
So, when did the idea for a formal mission, Bhakti Marga, start to even be discussed?
I think it was around the year 2004, I would say. Yeah.
That's already 6 years after you met him.
Yeah.
So for those 6 years, there was no conversation of any mission, of anything formal. It was all just organic.
I was definitely not interested in it.
But from his side, nothing?
Not really.
No hints?
Maybe, but not so strong.
Right. It was just organic. Meeting people, talking, traveling.
Yeah.
Nothing formal.
Yeah, no, nothing formal.
And in 2004, how did that conversation come about?
Basically, it happened with the first ashram project in Germany. And so that was purchased end of 2004. And before that happened, it was necessary to formulate some kind of legal entity in order to run or build and run that temple there. And at the time, I remember we were driving through Corsica, the island, French island. And I asked him, so look, we need to found this company. What should be the name of it? And he's just like, thinking or looking or whatever, doing for
what he does,
a few seconds, and then he said, "Call it Bhakti Marga." That was it.
So, but it's amazing. But
very simple. Sorry, nothing mysterious.
No mystical experience. Yeah, it's just basically what a legal requirement to have an entity, and then it's like, here's the name. But again, so fair enough. That's how it starts. But from there, how does it then? What I'm trying to say, maybe even before Bhakti Marga then, because even with the purchase of the ashram, that's already a formal step towards something more serious and more structured. And I know the brahmacharya initiations were sort of around the same time period. And try to capture that moment for me. Like, when does Guruji go from being this organic friend, traveling sort of grassroots person to ashram, monks, eventually Bhakti Marga as we know it with the logo and everything else? Like, what was the transition, you feel? What happened there?
How I experienced it, it was something that always was somehow lurking in the background. It was always like there. Yeah, for a number of times. Like, sometimes he used to make to one friend in Mauritius, he used to call her Mataji, like kind of teasing her, and he used to make some indications. So in retrospect, I see that it was always the objective, to have a more to have or give the possibility for a commitment to a life in service of God. That was always there, and that was always very important for him. That now in retrospect, I see it still is, but I saw that it was already then that people really commit to living for God, and to commit their life to the divine. That was and in around 2004, 2005. It was kind of, okay, now it's the time to become more formal with this. So to make it more concrete, maybe. That's a better way of saying it, to make it more concrete. And I wasn't a fan of this. I wasn't waiting for that or anything like this to happen. I didn't even want to move to the first ashram initially. I was happy in my Switzerland home and,
doing nothing at home.
I said like you guys go and you build your ashram. I'm going to come visit you every now and then. it didn't work out.
It didn't work out. No, you moved there. So how was that? How were the early years there living in an ashram? Now suddenly this life change?
I mean, it was gradual because it was initially it was just a move for me of location, and I was still having like an online job that I was doing, and at the same time we had this temple project, and we were starting to build this temple and renovating these houses, and like it was kind of a transition, so it was not overnight, and then more and more people started coming, and then we started the initiations, in Brahmacharya. I wasn't really so aware what it was.
What's funny is I'm trying to somehow, like, I'm searching my own memories because I had conversations with Guruji about many of these points in history, right? And I remember asking him once, what was the thinking behind all of that from his point of view, right? And he said to me, I fluctuated between being very patient and letting people sort of gradually warm up to certain concepts and warm up to certain things, and so gradually building, mixed in with sometimes having to accelerate things very quickly because they were not grasping things quick enough, right? And so it's like you allow a natural process, but sometimes you give a little push, right, to things to happen.
Yeah, sounds very much like him.
Yeah, and he was explaining that, so I said to him, did you always have a long-term vision that you wanted it to be this way, or has it been growing sort of organically? And he said, no, I always had the vision.
Yeah. No, in retrospect, I see that.
Yeah. And I think it's actually I would say masterful and very inspiring thing to look at in retrospect as well. How patient a person can be, should be sometimes, to nurture something beautiful and to wait. I look at that in my life with him. What I was in my early years with him to what I've become today would not have happened had he not been extremely patient with me, right? And I feel like Bhakti Marga is the same. We're now going to be celebrating 20 years next year, 2025. We're talking now about 2005 when it all started as a formal organization. A lot of patience in all of that, And of course, you've seen it. I joined in 2006. You were there before, of course. And a lot of changes have happened. And so if you look back now, as you were saying in retrospect, what do you think those early years, not the Bhakti Marga of like 2010, 11, 12, but those early years, 2005, 2006, what do you think is the biggest thing that is different from then to today?
Good question. With regards to him, or in general being around him?
Around him.
I think, well, in some sense he was surely more accessible, and because it was less formal, and less kind of etiquette, or less kind of, like having less of a role you needed to, or he fulfilled or played, let's say, less of a formal role. And that's definitely different. Of course, less people, obviously. What else is different? This is... I mean, he's not... sometimes people ask me, like, how is he different from then to now? And I would say not very much, to be honest. I think the thing that has changed the most probably is that there's definitely a certain seriousness about things. Maybe that's
I would say the same.
That's the difference. Yeah, it was extremely playful. Yeah. Before that, he was very like spontaneous and playful, and that was something like very particular. Like he was always happy, like back then. Like he was.
That's very true.
It's like always smiling, always cheerful, and and always singing a bhajan. And we just stepped into a car and would drive off, and he would start singing bhajan to the point that it annoyed me. It's because I never had anything left for bhajans for a long time. It was only later that I kind of grasped it.
I remember Paartha in the temple, guitar.
Yeah. That's when I understood,
Yeah.
But before that, I didn't really, I couldn't be bothered. For me, it was more like noise. Anyway, no, but he had.
Anyway.
He has a very good voice. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
He has a very beautiful voice, and he had it already then. And it was always like this,
I get it.
And now he has more of this role of like really pointing out your deficiencies and pointing out your fears, pointing out your, all these things where you need to work on. And he points it out in a way that is not so comfortable often, meaning like he's quite challenging also. He challenges you, and he's not like, oh, I have this, I have this pain. It's like, it's not like, oh, so sorry to hear you, put this plaster. He's not like this. It's like, he was more like he says something to challenge you to rise beyond that, and to become stronger. Yeah, he said that on numerous occasions that he wants us to become stronger, because in order to obtain God or God realization or this universal consciousness, let's say, you have to be strong. You can't be weak. You can't be weak in a sense. You can be soft, but that's not weak. Yeah, you have to be soft, but not weak, and weak in the sense of that you constantly revolve around yourself, around your petty ego and your desires, your pains and aches and whatever.
Yeah,
you have to let that go, and empty yourself so that you can receive something much greater. And so he's playing more that role, like to point this out. And
I can definitely agree with that.
Very annoying sometimes.
I can also agree with that. But I actually wanted to ask you a question about this, because somehow it makes me think. You were there all these years before Bhakti Marga started and in its beginning. A lot of people, when they hear you say something like this, he was more accessible, he was more happy, he was all this. A lot of people feel jealousy, or they feel like, oh, I wish I was there. If I had €1 for every time I've heard that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the counter argument I always feel is, do you think the people in that time took him for granted? Do you think they appreciated what they had, really? What's your opinion?
Some, and others not, or many not, I would say. Yeah, some
did.
Did I? I think I always knew it was special. Yeah, I always knew it was special. And for me, it was like, but also it was normal. Like it was my life. You know, that's how it was. It was not really, I spent time with his family. We were, friend circle, etc. It was like, family. It was my life. Yeah, it's family life, and it was not really something where I had to ask myself, or where I can say now if I took it for granted or not. In a way, yes, I took it for granted because it was my life. Yeah?
I understand.
So it wasn't really something to.
Yeah, because the point I somehow try to make sometimes is like, nowadays we have, Sampradaya, Siddhanta, he's a Acharya, we have our Swamis, it's all very formal in a sense, and there's structure and there's expectation and demands and rules and sadhanas and blah, 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 right? And sometimes I hear these people fall in love with these depictions of how things were, and they're like, I really wish I was there. And part of me fully understands, of course. I had my own beautiful moments in those times, but part of me also thinks, but I'm not sure that it would be better for you if you were, because as much as it's a natural and enjoyable experience, I don't know how much genuine spiritual fervor there is when you're just almost casually enjoying. You know what I mean?
I must say that when this started with the brahmacharis and with the more formal kind of spiritual life, I think I took it much more serious.
Yeah.
I took it much more serious than before. Yeah, And I think that's something that's a great benefit to now. Yeah, like now you have much more the opportunity, or you're much more pointed towards taking your spiritual life more serious and your sadhana, and understand that it's a very important aspect in life, if not the most important. Yeah, especially for those who commit themselves to being a devotee or being a brahmachari, etc. That's definitely different. And at the time, people just like were floating around, and they, but this wasn't that serious. Yeah,
I feel
and also, sorry, and also like because of the way he conducted himself was also sometimes because he was so, happy person kind of, and maybe people also didn't take him so serious.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah, no, because it's part of ongoing dilemma for me for many years, because when I became a Swami, one of the things he asked me was, or one of the things I asked him and then he instructed me rather, was not to be too friendly with the people. Like, be a friend to the people, but don't be too friendly with the people, right? And I try to digest these statements into a sincere way of being, because you don't want to become somehow cold and distant and arrogant, but I also want to understand the wisdom behind what he's asked me to do, right? And with time, more and more, I arrive at the point of, well, through a lot of self-questioning, because sometimes you get feedback, like, you could be warmer, you could be this, you could be that. And I start to see the parallels. Like, people seem to suggest the same thing about Guruji. He could be a little warmer sometimes, he could be a little closer sometimes.
Absolutely.
And I feel, and I feel like, of course, there's no comparison between me and him, and yet there is, in one level. Still, you're a public figure, dealing with a community, right? Of course, with different roles. And my feeling is that as I have been a little friendly, but with some distance, and I've seen my fellow brothers who sometimes have not had that feedback from Guruji and have gone a little deeper into it, I find more and more with the years passing the wisdom in what Guruji said to me, because the healthy balance between enjoying but then also respecting and taking things a little more seriously, I just think that can't be lost.
I think, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, go on.
I think it's, what comes to my mind in this respect is that I think it's quite easy to get, pulled into people's things, businesses, because everybody has a certain agenda. I don't mean this in a wrong way, because I do also. Everybody has personal concerns and agendas and wishes and whatnot. And by being too open, like you let yourself be drawn into that, and you lose something, of that what you represent. Yeah. Because, and if you lose too much of it, you no longer represent that properly. You no longer represent that in the way you're supposed to do that. You lose kind of part of your dharma, and you don't benefit from that at all. Neither do the people around you, or the people who profit from your duty and your dharma. And I think that's the risk, that you lose that dharma, and or you don't do it as well as you could. You don't fulfill your role as well as you could, and because you have this dharma, also because you want it and you find fulfillment in it, and you whether it's helping people along the spiritual path or whatever it is, and it's very, very important to stick to that, because the deeper you go into it, the deeper you accept it, the happier person you become yourself also. Yeah. And no matter what roles I had in my life, the deeper I went into it, the happier person I was, the more balanced, the more fulfilled person I was, and the more I could give without thinking I have to give. Yeah. But it was just like that. Yeah. I think that's very important to stick to one's dharma and one's duty. And that gets a bit, it can get murky when you're too, as a Swami, for example, you're too close.
Too entangled.
Yeah, entangled is maybe the right word. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't be on the same level in a sense. Because I think, and that's the difficult part, because like, how to say, I think as spiritual people, we should see ourselves as servants and not as superior to anyone else. In the contrary, you should see yourself as a servant, as the one always willing to be of assistance. And I think that's also important that we always remember that we are there for others.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's very, very valuable point to not lose that perspective. You know, like the toughest times I've had with Guruji in my personal relationship with him have been when I lost perspective. Because no matter how much he is a friend to me or a father figure or whatever, different roles, different times of my life, the problems only started when I also simultaneously lost the perspective that I am also his student and he is my teacher. Yeah. And so the understanding of the roles is so important. And I think the role of a true spiritual being is, as you said, a servant. When you really reach a certain level of spiritual maturity, you understand that life is about service to a big extent.
I never liked that idea, to be honest. I never liked that concept. And I never wanted to be a something does.
Yeah.
You know, I never really understood that concept, because I was more like, okay, but you know, I'm also a divine self, divine being,
realize the
kind
self,
of
this kind of
and why should I lower myself in a way? And I don't mean I never wanted to be arrogant or anything like this, but I somehow had always a resistance towards that concept of being the servant or the eternal servant or something like this. Because I had a certain image of that. And I think this is actually one of the most important things for me is when it comes to God, is that, or one of the biggest obstacles I see in people having a relationship with God is that they have a certain image. A certain concept, certain image of God. And it often is a negative one. It often is one that is, colored by a certain authoritative figure or somebody's punishing you, like bad conscience.
Judge, jury, executioner.
Judgmental and all this. And this is why, you know, people tend to shy away from this. So they don't want to have anything to do with that. And I completely understand. I don't want to have anything to do with something like that either. Yeah. And there was one saint who said, when people ask me, do I fear God? I tell them, no, I love God. And that for me was a very, very, very deep or inspiring statement. Yeah. So God is something that is so loving, but is almost too loving, so that we can't understand. Yeah, and there is so many layers in between our mind and our soul. Yeah, the core of our soul that understands this. That there's so many misunderstandings. Yeah.
I mean, immediately as you were saying this, I was thinking, how do we learn to love? And it's like, okay, I learn you first you love your parents, but there's an innocence to it in the very beginning. But then after that innocence starts to go away, and it's like the point of loving your parents that I think doesn't translate well to this is that with your parents you can always somewhat abuse them a little bit. Like I don't mean it like consciously, but like
I'm
you
like
pee
this
on your
because
mom
of my parents.
And that also, that's another kettle of fish. But yeah, it's true. But like, you know, you pee on your parents as a baby and they'll just clean it up because they're your parents and they love you, right? And I think that there's a maturity process that has to happen of learning to love a little differently, where it's like, I love, and therefore because I love you, service is almost the natural, it's not a thought process. It's not I choose to serve. Service is just my state of loving. It's like, I love you, therefore whatever I can do to bring benefit to you, I will, because I love you.
You know, for me, I had the experience in my meditation or my prayer. Sometimes my prayers becomes a meditation or the other way around. And when I'm then in this when I just feel the Divine Mother, for example, present, and I feel this love, it's like the only thing you want to do is to serve her. That's the only thing you want to do. It's just like natural. It's not because I want to work for someone, because I always equated that like I need to work for God.
My boss, God the boss.
I don't want to work for God. Especially not eternally. It's just like, well, I'm going to retire at some point and enjoy life. So I always had this resistance, because, and it always put that I say that separation between me and God, because I was like, this is stupid. Like, I don't want to be, because I have this image of like, let's say being the child of God, and it's different from being the child and the servant, And I don't know if you probably know this I say parable of the prodigal son that goes away and then he comes back and then he gets all this attention and this, because God, the Father, loves him so much and he's so happy he's back. But the son wants to work, for the Father again, even as a servant of the servants of the Father. He has that attitude. But at the same time, God doesn't have this attitude, or the Father doesn't have this attitude. The Father is just happy he's back, no matter what. And this is how I see God. I don't see God as okay, now you have to render me service in order that I can reward you a place in heaven or some bullshit. No, it's not like that. And so I have this image or this picture of God that he just loves us extremely, like you can't imagine it in any way. We can't even imagine it. I had a couple of experiences and it was just crazy. Like we can't.
Of the love of God.
It's inexpressible. So that's why I always had this hesitation of this, or this.
Well, concepts, like you said, I mean, perhaps you mentioned the concept of like, judgmental, this, that, and the other. I think sometimes even the good concepts are a problem because it's limiting. It's the limitation you put on the box somehow. And I feel like the most important thing a true spiritual seeker needs to understand is what you said. There is almost no correlation between what God really is and the concepts we filled our mind with. Guruji says it so often. When I say service, don't think of the service that you know. It's a different kind of service. When I say love, don't think of the love you know. It's a different kind of love. When I say he has a form, don't think of forms that you know. When I say he's a person, don't think of persons that you know. It's like, you know what I mean? There's some parallelisms, but at the same time.
And this is the thing where I think at some point the theories end, or concepts or dogmas, etc. end, and experience needs to start. It's like if you try to explain to somebody what salt is. Like you can describe it. You can
describe the taste of an orange to someone who never had it.
Yeah, you can describe it in the crystal form. Its chemical formula is this such and such, and it tastes salty. It's like, but if you don't taste it, you have absolutely no idea.
No reference.
And this is why this is what I love about Guruji, is that he can give you this experience, and he does. Occasionally give it just so you know actually what you're looking for.
I had a conversation once with somebody about exactly this. They were coming to me and they were saying, look, I know this and this philosophy, Hindu philosophy, I know this and that. I'm very well versed in the scriptures. And they were not arrogant. They were not an arrogant person. They were, like, I'm very committed to my sadhana. I follow my Guru Parampara. I'm doing this, that, and the other. And I struggle to understand why you are all so enamored by Guruji and what's going on here, without being too judgmental either. It was just a genuine question, right? And I remember saying to the person, what would you do? What would you give to have an actual experience of Krishna? You talk about all your scriptures and everything else, and I value them immensely. But what would you give to just have one experience of Krishna directly? And the person was like, I think anything. And I said, so, we're getting somewhere now. Because my answer to you is, what would you do if you have had those experiences that are surely the whole purpose of everything else you've mentioned to me? Why do you follow Parampara? Because you want to attain truth. Why do you study scripture? To know the truth, to experience the truth. Why do you practice sadhana? To experience and attain the truth. So what happens when you experience the truth? Isn't that the whole purpose, the whole goal of it all? And one time Guruji said to me, like, the biggest problem with religions and all these structured systems is that they have the map to the treasure in their hands, which is wonderful, great. Absolutely, you should not throw away that map, right? But sometimes they fall in love with the map, and they're standing where the X is marked on the map. The treasure is right in front of them, but they're just saying to everybody, I have the map. The map is amazing, and they ignore the treasure that the map is leading them to. The only value of the map is that it takes you to the treasure. Once you've got the treasure, what's the value of the map? It is, in a sense, worthless.
Yeah, but this is a very scary thing to stand in front of God, or just at the gate of God, let's say. It's a very scary thing, and you have to be really ready for it, you know. I can't say that I was ready for it or I'm ready for it.
Me neither.
I can't, because it's it's like really giving away control. Yeah, it's like really surrender. This total surrender and giving up control is a very scary thing, and very few people are ready for that. Yeah, and say like, look, and I think it's just certain experiences people or one needs to go through in order to get there. Yeah, like try and error. Yeah.
One of the things that I talking about control, Guruji gave a satsang recently, and he said, like, what's the biggest problem, like problematic attitude that humans have? And he flipped it on the audience, and the audience was suggesting answers like arrogance, this, that, and the other, atheism, and he was like, no. And then they ran out of good answers, and then he said, it's independence. It's the desire to be independent, because it's your illusion of control. It's your illusion that you're in charge.
And the thing is, this it's a very delicate subject in my opinion, because and I'm a very big fan of independence, as you know.
I know.
A very big fan of personal freedom and independence, because I think, or I believe strongly that we need really to be, if the people in the world were more self-responsible, if everybody was really truly self-responsible and saw the responsibility in what's happening to them in themselves or their part in it, etc., the world would be such a beautiful and peaceful place. A lot of the conflicts and problems I think we have in the world is because we tend to miss our own part in the issues and blame it on somebody else. And so I strongly believe that we must absolutely uphold that. And sometimes this seemingly contradicts with Guruji's teachings also, who says surrender, etc.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, no, I don't think, but superficially it does.
Yeah, agreed.
It does. And I also think that to look a bit more self-critically, sometimes this also happens that people give up responsibility because of what he says. Or because of what in general religion teaches, but also him, and they want to have nothing. I have nothing to do with this anymore. I surrender everything to Guruji, and I ask. Some of my people ask me, "Did you ask Guruji?" But I said no. Why should I? No, I take my own decisions. Yeah, and sometimes I get criticized for that because. But Guruji knows best. And sometimes I do ask him. And then why do I ask him? Because it's my own decision. It's my choice of asking him his advice. And this is, for me, the most important thing is that even if I surrender to God or Guruji or whatever, it is my decision to do so.
And it can't be any other way.
But very often I think it's a very, very tricky thing. Yeah, like I really believe that this decision, it's still my decision to surrender. Yeah, because when I have only an ounce of, let's say, feeling of that I'm doing something which I don't stand behind fully, I'm not ready, and when it happens to me, I will be overwhelmed. I will be whatever, like. Asking for self-realization, God realization, or asking for God, like what does that mean? Like that's we have absolutely no idea. Like it can be that if we genuinely have this prayer and ask for this, it can be that our life falls into pieces.
Absolutely.
Because of all the karmas that suddenly get exposed or accumulated or like worked out, or like if we want freedom, we want to be free from everything, from all the shackles, etc. Also the ones that we might still need,
But actually, I agree with you. But you see, one of the things that Guruji told me is, instead of asking for self-realization, God-realization, all these things, he said, only ask for two things: wisdom and strength. Okay? God, give me the wisdom and strength. And I sit there and I think, if I didn't have to take choices by myself, why would I need wisdom and strength, right? So the fact that he recommends me to request wisdom and strength is to empower me to make good choices and to overcome what I need to overcome, right? And so the way I look at it is, I think there's layers to this, and I think it's a mistake to connect independence with responsibility, first of all. I think at a base level, society is very irresponsible. They want to always throw the burden of responsibility onto something else. Someone else, the neighbor,
government.
the government, society, it's the
always the
weather,
government.
it's what I'm depressed because of the weather. There's always someone to blame for everything.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the base level. I think when someone becomes genuinely spiritual, they actually start to gradually become radically self-responsible. Ideally, they should. What you said is completely true, though, that many religious people continue their old habit of blaming everything else except taking responsibility for their lives, right? Oh, Guruji said that's why I did this. Or the Bible says that's why I do this. And it's not my fault. It's just this, that, and the other, right? That's responsibility as a crutch. And I think we take radical self-responsibility. And I think Hinduism actually, in my opinion, is almost perfect for making somebody radically self-responsible, because it's your karma. It's your responsibility. Literally, karma is a system of responsibility. You did this, you bear the consequence. You wanted to have a different consequence, make a different choice. And you will create your new consequence. It's you. You have to take choices. You have to stand by your choices and act out the consequences of those choices. But at the highest level, the dependency versus independency that Guruji talks about, I feel, is fundamentally now, not in terms of your ability to take choices, take responsibility, but what are you? An independent being or a dependent being? And my point there is, the same way that the body depends on the soul to be alive, my soul depends on God for its existence, for its purpose. A hair, once plucked from a head, is purposeless. Its purpose is only met in so long as it's connected to the head that it's on. This eyeball, if you remove it, it will not see anymore. Its purpose is only met in so long as it's with this body. And so that's the kind of dependency that I think he's talking about. And it's like human beings, we only fully fulfill our purpose in so long as we are connected to God, right?
I think that the word self-responsible describes it beautifully, because, but we have to take self-responsibility all the way, from ourself as a petty self, as an ego, as a personality, as a maturing personality, to the true self that we are. We are responsible to that. And the more we uncover about ourselves, the more we uncover about our soul and our true self, the more we get to that. Yeah, that we see that what we think we are, our mind, personality, is not the truth. It's not the ultimate truth. It is a truth, but it's not the ultimate truth. Yeah, and that realization, or that gradual, which comes through sadhana, through spiritual practice. And practicing love, comes that realization which you just described, that I'm not an independent being, but I'm actually one part of the whole. And as such, I may be able to do certain things, but I can never say that I am independent from everything.
What you said earlier, I don't have to ask Guruji. I choose to ask Guruji.
And
right?
it's even that we are always in a system. Yeah, we are always part of a system, whether it's a family system. I cannot say I'm
even
independent.
A divine system.
Yeah, like I don't have parents. It's no. Yeah. I need to have parents in order to exist in this world. Yeah, there's no way around it. Yeah. It's silly. Yeah, and the same way for the soul. The soul cannot say, or the self, I am independent from God. No, it's just a higher, a more subtle system.
I just think that at the highest level, all of this disappears, like this principles of choices and stuff. We have choice, undoubtedly we have choice, but the saint is characterized by the alignment between his will and God's will. There is no possibility that the saint acts against the will of God, right? It may appear sometimes for the sake of Leela, right? Like, oh, he's rebellious, he's this, that, and the other. But I think fundamentally what makes one a saint is the alignment between that person and God, the perfect cohesion between the two. It's not that he doesn't have agency, that's not what I'm saying, but there is a marriage, there's a bond.
I think the saint has... just in comparison to a regular person, a huge amount of acceptance inside of themselves of the truth, of what is the truth, and
no resistance to the truth.
Yeah, because you accept that you are divine. No, the saint accepted that he or she is a divine being and doesn't resist to that. I really love this quote from Ananda Moima. Where somebody was asking her, like, how isn't it hard to be a renunciate, to be an ascetic, live an ascetic life? Yeah. And she laughed at the person's face, and I said, I'm not the ascetic. You are all the ascetics, because you renounced the divine. You renounced the bliss. The bliss, that's what you said. You renounced the divine bliss that you could be living in. You look for it in all these little things, and you experience a part of it, but you never experience the real deal, and you separated yourself from that, and you're telling me I'm a renunciate. No, you are the renunciate.
I'd heard that quote years ago. I'd forgotten about it, but it's a great one.
And this is such a great quote, in my opinion. It's just like perfectly encapsulates the whole problem of humanity in a way.
We have our pants on backwards somehow. It's all a bit upside down.
Yeah.
I can't remember who said it. It was either Kabir or someone like this. I had read it once in a poem, and it was this. It was like, I get called a madman, and I look at you and I think you're the mad people. Like, it's just, you're all got the world upside down.
Kabir, Rumi, Rabia, these ecstatic poets, they're amazing. Yeah. These mystics, they're amazing. Like, there's one quote of Rumi where he says, mystics are the laziest people on the planet. All they do is sit and watch God work. Because they realize it's his doing, that they don't need to do anything.
Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita, if you're lucky, after many lifetimes, one comes to the point of realizing Vasudeva Sarvam, everything is Krishna, right? Like, it's a very lucky thing. And if you do, then you become a lazy mystic.
Like, I love this. I saw once this image of somebody performing a yagna, like a fire ceremony, and you could see like an enlightened person, and you could see the person performing the yagna. The yagna was the same person. What they were offering was the same. Yeah. The fire was the same. The surrounding was the same. And I mean, this is what we say also when we start the yagna. And this is absolutely beautiful. And I don't know. It's just, for some reason, we
I always get annoyed at words when we have these conversations, though, because I always feel like words are the problem. Because I'm saying this, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, immediately my mind goes to how people are going to understand these words, and I'm just like, ugh. Because it's like you say service, like you said, resistance was there for a long time. What is this service business, right? Until something more comes, and you're like, okay, the same thing is all of this. We are divine. And then someone's thinking like, whoa. It's just like...
Yeah, because it's the mind. Look,
that's it.
And this is the thing, like the mind is always a servant of God, just or of the self. And just like the self is a servant of God, the completeness of God. Yeah.
I don't even want to almost unpack it, because it's just, I'd rather just say words are limited, and the problem with communication is I say one thing, you hear another, and it's the same across most conversations. We don't actually have the same concepts in our minds for many things.
And that's the problem with concepts, and this is what I said in the very beginning about the concept of God. That what I feel is like people have a certain image of God, and that's why they resist God. Yeah. They don't want God. Just like I resisted the term of it being a servant. Yeah.
But it's made people question me at times. Then why do you do what you do? As a knowledge teacher, as a philosopher, as a podcaster, like, recognizing and fully admitting that these problems exist about concepts, about words, about limitations, what it is, and why do you do what you do? And I've always sort of gone back to Guruji because I had to question myself about that many times. Like, Guruji is not shy in criticizing knowledge-based approaches, right? Like and at the same time, he's requesting that everybody studies. Everybody should read the Gita, everybody should study, whatever else. And so there has to be a balance here somewhere. And I spoke to him about it. And one of the things he said to me from the beginning, which was very clear, was it's about unlocking the key, the doors to the soul, to the heart, to that which is of real importance. And knowledge is like a key, right? The more languages you speak, the more keys you have. And he didn't just mean French, German, English, Portuguese. It's the more languages you speak and the more concepts, the more constructs, the more ideas. You don't know which mind will get opened by that idea, because the point is to open it and go within to what is more divine.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I had a funny experience when like I told you before, I never liked bhajans. For me, it was more like noise. And so I always resisted to go in the temple, even in the first ashram, and sing bhajans. Can't be bothered. And at some point, I just say to myself, okay, I think somebody said, it was funny because somebody heard me speak in a low, I have a kind of a bit of a low voice, maybe not that low, but yeah. And then the person said, oh, he would have a great singing voice. I heard somebody say that, and I was like, and I was pondering about it, like, maybe I should try it. Yeah? Maybe I should try. And so I one day did sing a bhajan, and I actually liked it. Surprise. And I started singing bhajans like almost daily, and something opened inside of me. And I suddenly got a new access to God, or to this divine energy, or whatever. There's a, spiritual feeling awakened or something. And it was like opening a door that I was there and I never opened it before. So I understand what you're saying about knowledge. And knowledge is another door that opens towards something that you haven't yet accessed, and there's different, and this is the beauty about what Guruji offers with Bhakti Marga, with pujas. The performing pujas is another one, prayers, meditation, kriya is another one, singing is one, I think, very important one, which we often underestimate. Art, like spiritual art is another one, and then knowledge, philosophy is also
it's gateways to truth. It's gateways.
Yeah, a very important one, and it's not just one is the only one. Yeah, you might have a tendency and a love or a passion for one of them, but they're all equally okay, and they're all equally important.
Yeah. It's actually funny because yesterday there was darshan for the men, and Guruji at the end he gave a talk, and he was encouraging, like, I want everyone here to sing, not just like sing along, like sing, like I want you all. Like, next year you're all gonna sing, and everyone's like, yeah, all the guys are enthusiastic. But it's true, like sometimes you really need to like someone get that kick up the butt to like just do it. See what you don't know what that's gonna open up, what kind of experiences are gonna come from that kind of realm.
And he's very good at that. Guruji's very good at that. Like he can just tell you something, in a certain way, and then, oh yes, and you start doing it, and it can actually change. I saw it with my mom. Like he told my mom to start singing bhajans and to have like a bhajan group at her place, and for 20 years or so, like she had that, like every Thursday, even sometimes nobody would show up, she would still do it, like
amazing.
She was doing that like all the time. Every Thursday, and like he has a way, and I've seen that in many other, occasions as well. He has a way of inspiring you that I haven't seen anywhere else.
Do you know? It reminds me of
because he puts that spirit in it.
Yeah. There's a teaching in the Sikh tradition. It was the seventh Sikh Guru Har Rai. Once his disciples, they asked him, what's the value of studying the scriptures of our gurus if we don't understand what they're saying? Like we don't sometimes grasp what is the point, what is the meaning, what is the value. And he didn't answer them straight away, the guru. He went for a walk with them And on the walk, they saw a broken pot, and it had butter inside. And he said to them, look at this broken pot. It can't contain the butter anymore. It's not able to grasp it, right? But the butter clings to the pot nonetheless. And when the sun will beat on it, that butter is going to melt into the pot. And his point was, when the time is right, all the things that the Guru has been imparting onto you, be it the knowledge, the kirtan, the whatever else, and you may not understand the value of it, you may not understand what it's about, it will melt into you when the sun hits you right. When the right moment comes, all that the Guru has been giving to you will bear its fruit, will bear its effect, so to speak. Whether you understand it or not, whether you fully comprehend how, when, why, it will just happen. And I think one of the most beautiful advices that I have received and given to people is that, it's that just try it. Like Guruji wants you to do something, just give yourself to it a little bit, whether you fully grasp it or not. Do it. Read that Gita. Whether you understand fully what's being said, read it. Like let these things cling to you. Yeah. Let this perfume get stuck on you in a way, and your fragrance will become wonderful with time, you know. And
yeah,
I
it's nice, especially with the Gita also, what you're saying. Yeah, it's like just reading it just does something with you. Yeah. Even if you don't like, I'm very bad at memorizing.
It will bear its fruit. It will bear its fruit.
Different, sayings, but it's like, yeah.
It will bear its fruit. There's one thing I want to talk to you before we finish, because I think you touched upon it, and then immediately there was a little light bulb in me. I was like, yeah. You mentioned Divine Mother, right? And you're very much, I mean, I've always seen, okay, there's Paartha, the work colleague. You know, we work as directors of this organization, a lot of meetings, a lot of work, organizing seva and, you know, all of this. But there's, of course, Paartha, the devotee, right? And you've always been, for as long as I can remember, a devotee of Ma, or the Divine Mother. How did that really come about for you? Like, how did that start for you?
I think the first time I consciously became aware of her was like I was walking through the town in Switzerland, and I saw some market stands, and once a week there's market, and I saw on a market stand like just some picture of an Indian goddess, and I saw her, and it just something happened inside of me, yeah, and I felt this kind of blissful feeling inside of me, and this is the first time I consciously noticed her, so to speak, and then a long time passed, and then it was, I think it was in 2009 when we were celebrating Navaratri here, where Divine Mother really was, her presence was so apparent and so tangible and so strong during that Navaratri that I just completely fell in love with her. And that was also the time when Guruji inaugurated the Kali temple here in Sri Pityanilaya.
You've been serving there ever since, right?
Yes. And I was
as a servant.
I was in India also to buy the Utsava Murti, the small Kali Murti, and the Kanchika Makshi. That was the same time. So I've known them from the beginning, so to speak. And that's when it started. Yeah. And for me, what I love about Divine Mother is just that she is so, for me at least, so close to creation. She is creation, and through this she's so close to us human beings, like nobody else, let's say, or no other god, whatever. Yeah, that's how I experience her. Like she is in us as Kundalini Shakti. It's like the moment she leaves us, our body drops dead. Like there's nothing more closer somehow. Yeah, and she is in the whole creation. She is the whole creation. Prakriti. She's nature, Mother Nature. Yeah, and I just love that not idea, but that reality. Yeah, and that she's just in around us, and I could go on more deeper in it. I don't know if you want that, but yeah.
I don't want anything. But it's like, how do you maybe this, maybe then just to marry that? Like, how do you reconcile the relationship you have with her with Guruji? Like, with relationship with Guruji, how does that fit into you in some way?
How does it reconcile?
No, I mean it more in the sense, like I sometimes people come to me and they're like, I sit down to meditate, and Guruji is the one that my mind goes to.
Yeah.
Right. Other people, it's their Ishtadev. They'll go to Krishna, they'll go to Ma, they'll go to whatever. And then they almost, I wouldn't say have guilt, but they come almost like, what is the right way? Like, how can I make this healthy? What is Guruji's wish for it, right? And I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong, and this is irrelevant to me, but just what is your...
Look, the thing is this, my experience of Divine Mother is that she is, not only she is in everyone, my experience is she is everyone. And she's taken on different identities as myself, you, whatever, like, yeah. And that's close, she's that close. And Guruji, I see as someone, he can just snip your finger and she's there. And you realize her basically, yeah? And you realize who you are, who she is.
Yeah.
You suddenly realize the whole play. He's shown me that. And this is the relationship.
And he's the architect in that way somehow.
I don't know what he is, if he's the architect, or we can say architect.
Well, if he snaps his fingers. But
yeah,
sure.
In a way, that's
Conductor,
what
what
he can do. Yeah. And that's what I can say. That's my personal experience, and whether how their relationship is, or I don't even want to go there. Like, I don't care, to be honest. I don't care, because that's like so beyond of what my mind can understand. I can't really say anything about it.
Well, I think one of the, just as a side note, one of the cool philosophical things we have in our Siddhanta that again touches on what you just said about, like, she is all of us in some sense. We have this, what we call Tadatmya Vali. It's like a spectrum of Tadatmya, this feeling of oneness between two beings, right? And the analogy we use in the book is that if you put an iron rod into the fire, it starts to take on all the properties of the fire, right? And it starts to be property-wise indistinguishable from fire, right? And so it's the same. It's like, as you said, Prakriti is everything.
And so if you take it out again, it becomes the iron again. So that's how that's always the thing. Yeah. It's like, are you leaving it in the fire until it becomes truly one, or you're taking out with it? And if you're taking it out again, it becomes its own seemingly separate identity again. And that's, I think that, and this is also, I think, the big, I say, like when we say we are divine or God, whatever, yes, we are and yes, we're not, in a way. Huh? Yeah. Depends.
Because in some sense we are not, and in some sense we are. It's we can be of one nature whilst being two objects, if that makes sense. But anyway, that's for another... Wait, where's Myron? Let's get Myron in here and have philosophy. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paartha. It's been a nice conversation. I think it's almost impossible to capture what something was or what something, for a mind that is now, but I think it's just sometimes nice to hear little drops of how things were. And then I actually enjoyed sharing as well about some spiritual insights and stuff. So really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I hope to have you back someday.
Yes, it would be nice. Take it, Dave.